dear fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. I will do my best during this speech to enunciate my points, but more importantly, this is to tell you about something that I just learned recently about, and it's called space weather. Now, where does my smile come into this? Well, I wanted to see if I could put a smile on your face, but also inform you and do something to make you do a little more research on this. So, we have a small conversation going on between two people. So, what do you know about space weather? Oh, is that UFO thing that's going on? No, it's not. Well, what do you mean by a UFO? Those unidentified falling objects. You know, like maybe the meteors falling down or the planes falling apart, whatever it is, that's what I'm referring to. No, that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about space weather. Oh, is that those really cool lights that I see in the sky in the north from time to time? You know what? You're actually right, so let's talk about it. Space weather is really the interaction between this small dot over here we'll call the Earth, and this nice round object here we'll call the Sun. And how this affects us here on Earth. Now here on the Earth, you know, everything's really cool and everything. Perfect weather, everything else. But Sun's a little bit different. Not only a lot bigger, but it's got a lot more going on. Did anybody ever see, this past year, everybody see the eclipse? Yeah? Raise your hand? Yeah? Okay. So as you saw the moon kind of moving into the Earth's shadow, you saw some edges going on, and that's called the Sun's corona. In other words, the surface of the Sun. You know, we look at it, maybe it's really flat like this, but it's really got all this activity going on around the Earth and how it affects us. But more importantly, well, how does this work and how does this affect us? Well, have you ever seen water by itself, just sitting by itself, right? What happens when you make it hot? What's that? Tell me, what happens when you make water hot? What does it do?
It starts to boil.
Well, exactly. Well, that's what the Sun does. The Sun is really hot. Now, you got to remember that the source of the Sun's heat is nuclear explosions. So it's really cool at the center, but the farther it gets out, the hotter it is. And you'll see some of that when you heat water up, right? You see it start to boil, you start to see things coming off of that. Well, that's the same thing that happens with the Sun. So we're going to talk about three items here briefly that impact us. We call it solar weather. The first one is just background noise, background radiation. So if you've ever turned a radio, maybe down low, you hear all that static and stuff going on. Well, that's part of it. That's Sun's interference, and that's what we're hearing. Or, if you've ever had your cell phone out, and you got your GPS going, and suddenly it goes, for whatever reason, that may be one of the reasons. Again, it does happen from time to time, and the way I noticed it when I was much younger, I had one of these big satellite dishes, you know, about 12 feet wide, okay? And a couple of times a year in October and March, you would see the signals start to go out. Zip, 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 zip. And you could watch the satellites blink out over a period of time. And that was because of this background interference. And all of this is caused because our Sun is one big hot. And it's got all this stuff going on. So it's not only heating at a really hot temperature, but there's all this stuff coming off. We call it solar winds, maybe solar flares. The second one is called solar radiation, or a radiation storm. Now, what does that do with us? Well, let's imagine you're on the space station, okay? And according to my schedule, it says, well, it's time to go out for a spacewalk. And I'm all dressed up in my helmet and everything. I'm getting ready to go. And suddenly I hear a nice little sign that says, oh, your spacewalk's been postponed. It's been postponed because all this radiation's coming at him, and we don't want him to glow in the dark. And then finally, the third one is what we call a CME. And what that's referring to is the corona we were talking about has a mass ejection. In other words, here we are on the surface of the sun, and it suddenly boils out, and you start to see almost a loop, or in this case, a circle, and suddenly that escapes. So what happens as a result of that is all that's coming towards the Earth today. And what happens is, I see these beautiful lights up in the sky, and we call them the northern or southern lights, or the aurora borealis. Well, that's a result of all this stuff coming off of the sun and hitting the planet. But you also notice that they hit the north and the south parts of our area. But if something gets really bad, then it can affect everything. It can affect our communications. Think of all the things we use with electricity. Phones, communication devices, everything like that. So that's where these all come into play. So I'll urge you to do more research about space weather and see how it affects you. Mr. Joseph.